What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. I'm super excited to dive into some question and answer stuff today. Shout out to everyone who threw me some questions, whether that be on Instagram, Strava, YouTube. Super pumped for that. Appreciate you guys following along there and subscribing to the channel. Follow me on Instagram, follow me on Strava. My goal is to still become a Strava star, so I'm working on that. So make sure you head over there, follow me on all those platforms so that you don't miss out on anything I'm putting out, any of these Q&As, if you have any questions for me. And yeah, so before I dive into some of the good questions that I did get, I do want to give you guys a little bit of an update overview of my last week of training. So we're 2 weeks out from the Mississauga Marathon. It is literally coming down to crunch time, which excites me, makes me nervous, all that stuff combined. But last week, coming off of my peak week, which was 105 kilometers, finishing off with that super hard workout that I made the previous YouTube video about. So if you haven't checked that out, make sure you check that out. I was feeling pretty beat up. So I've heard this in the past, a lot of people coming off their peak weeks and starting into their tapers, starting to feel good, maybe question like, did I do too much? Don't really have the motivation to get out there and run. I felt all of that this week. I was feeling fatigued. My legs were feeling tired. I kind of felt a little bit under the weather, whether I was actually sick or if I was just feeling the effects of coming off a big training week. My training went okay. So I had really one hard workout. It was a fartlek workout that I did on Wednesday. It didn't go well. I talked about it on my Strava where I said I ran solely off of feel. I didn't even look at my paces just because I knew heading in it wasn't going to be one of those runs where I was probably going to nail the paces that I wanted. So I ran totally off feel, trying to like auto-regulate my body a bit. I ended up then missing one 13-kilometer run. This would be probably the very first run that I've missed in this block of training altogether. I was supposed to run. I was feeling a little sick, not feeling too hot. I decided that I wasn't going to run that run and take a complete day off, which I think in the long run ended up being a good decision. And then I capped it off yesterday as the recording of this video with my 24K easy long run, which actually ended up feeling, not too bad. But volume is definitely coming down, which is great. But my intensity is going to stay high. So looking into this week coming up, I have a pretty hard 10K run that will happen probably on Tuesday. And then that will probably be the only real intensity that I get that week. And then I'll have another kind of longer-ish run. I think my longest run this week coming up is probably like 17K, which is pretty crazy to think that like a couple weeks prior, most of my like base runs were around 15K, which is, just wild to see the volume come down, which is great. So I'm hoping that my body comes around, but I'm feeling optimistic. I know that this is part of the process. Now is just the time where I need to dig into focusing on fueling, showing up for my runs, and just like pushing through a little bit of the mental barrier that, you get at this point of training where you're just tired mentally and physically, and really trying to focus on setting yourself up for the race. But I don't want to ramble on too much about that stuff. I want to dive into some of the questions. So shout out to everyone who gave me a few questions to answer. I think I have about 4 or 5 that I'm going to go through today. Some will be quicker answers, some will be a little bit longer. So I'll kind of mix them in between. But one of the questions that I got was, will you run an ultra marathon one day? The answer to that is I have run an ultra marathon already. So I have ran 2 ultra marathon distance runs. I ran a 50K trail ultra in November of 2022 in Milton, Ontario. It was called the Beeve. That was my first official trail ultra marathon. I think I ended up coming in around 5 hours and 37 minutes. Was an awesome experience, loved it. Trail running is something that I do enjoy and I will eventually get back to. I'm actually doing a trail run at the end of May, but I have run an ultra. I've done that ultra, and then I did a backyard ultra. This would have been, I think my dates are all off, but I've talked about this before. It might have been like 2021. I did a backyard ultra, which is essentially you run a 4.7K loop or something like that every hour on the hour until you quit or until you win. During that event, I ran for a total of 12 hours and did 80K. So I have done ultra marathons. It's something that I enjoy. It's something that I will get back into. And probably as I go on throughout my endurance career, really push the limits of. I have some big aspirations in that realm that I don't think I'll share yet, but is something that's on my mind. So I have done an ultra marathon, and I will do ultra marathons again at some point in my endurance career. I got a funny question from my good friend Johnny, saying, how do you run that much and still look so good? I think he was referring to the picture that I posted with the question box on Instagram. The answer is you always need to know where the camera is at. This is a lesson. If you're out there and you're running a race and you're paying the money to be out there, you want to get some good shots of you. That's probably half the reason why you're doing the race. So know where the cameras are so that you know you can look your best when they do show up. So that's definitely how I do that. I don't look great for most of the time that I'm running, but I do know where the camera is at so that I can get some good pictures to share with you guys. Another question I got was, how often should you run at 100% while training? I'm not exactly sure. I should have probably clarified that this individual, shout out to Dylan, was referring to. I think based off of reading this, it's like, how often should you be running at like 100% intensity or like max effort while training? And that's kind of how I'm going to answer it. And in my experience so far, you shouldn't be really running at 100% that frequently, and very little, to be honest. So one of the things that I've tried to do this block of training is really run my easy days easy and run my hard days really hard. I was kind of blending the two. I was either running my easy days too hard and then I was running my hard days too easy. And so that's not a good place to be when you're trying to improve fitness and improve your ability to run the marathon specifically faster, from my understanding. And so how often I'm running 100%, I would say if I look back at this block of training, there's probably two big runs that stick out to me: my 30K run that I did in Florida, and then my most recent marathon simulation run that I did last week. Those two runs are pretty high effort, probably pushing my body to it's close to its limits. And then there's some other like little fartlek runs. I say little, but like shorter fartlek runs that I've done in prep, where I'm doing like 10 by 800 meter repeats or 12 by 800 meter repeats. And those are also at like a really high intensity. But that is coming like not that frequent. So when I look at the percentage of time where I'm running hard, it's probably around 20% is the goal. And then 80% of the time I'm running easy. And then even within that, like max effort where like I'm on the ground, like really feeling it, I would say in this block of training, I've felt that way probably twice. And this block of training has been going on for closer to like 3 to 4 months. So I think this is something that people struggle a lot with, is they either run way too fast and way too hard too often, and they end up injuring themselves, or they end up not getting the most out of their workouts. And it's something that I've really tried to dial in my experience. And I would say this block of training has been my best with regards to balancing that. So question I got is one that I actually have had discussions about frequently, and it's around like your bowel movements and your gut while running. And shout out to Ricky for bringing this question up. For me, I've experienced this. I think every runner's experienced it, where you feel like you're about to have a bowel movement while you're out there running. I specifically remember running early in my running career, and it was the dead of summer. I was running out on the basically in the countryside. It was August. It was so hot. I was dying. I felt terrible. And I remember just like slowly feeling my guts like falling apart. And it was the very first time, and I know this is kind of gross, where I had to use the facilities that weren't really facilities. And that happens. And I'm sure that most runners have experienced this at some point where they, have to do what they got to do. So that is definitely something that I've experienced. And one thing that I will, touch on from more of like a value standpoint is like you need to practice training your gut. A lot of new runners who come into running who haven't run before experience like GI issues, especially when you start thinking about fueling, especially when you're running in the heat. So one thing that I've done and I've tried really hard to do over the course of my running career is really train my gut. So practice fueling, practice using different ways of fueling your body before, during, and after. If you are new to running and you're noticing that you're having GI issues, making sure that you're doing loops or you're doing something where you can quickly access a facility. These are all things that you can train, and the more you train them, the more likely that they aren't going to happen. Now, that's the part of racing where anything can happen on any given day, and you could be the most fit that you are and feeling great, and you just have a bad gut day, which is unfortunate, but you can do a lot to try to control those circumstances the best that you can. So if you guys have a funny GI story, let me know in the comments because I would love to hear that. The next question is going to be a little bit more around like improvements in my running. So I got two questions that were kind of similar. One was, what has led you to seeing improvements in your pace over the course of your running? Shout out to my beautifully bearded friend William for giving me this question. I think there's a ton of factors that have gone into it, and like breaking it down. I think the first and foremost, the number one is like I've just run for a longer period of time. So I've been running consistently now going on 4 years for a minimum of 3 times per week. I don't think in that course of time, maybe I've had like a week off here or there following a race where I'm not running at all. But the consistency that I've built up in my running over the last 3.5 years has really led to just me running more efficient, running stronger, and seeing improvements in my pace. It's also led to me just having a better base aerobic fitness, which has allowed for my body to move faster. So I think straight up just running more and running consistently, you will see improvements in your pace. Your body figures out how you like to move, it figures its efficiencies out, and eventually you kind of find your groove. You also become just a better runner. So that's number one. And the thing that is frustrating with that is that for most people to hear is that it just takes time. Like running is one of those sports where like the consistency compounds, and a lot of the fitness that you gain just takes time from running more and running consistently. But outside of that, I will say like the last year of my running, I've seen my paces really improve, and I think there's 2 reasons for that. One, I've started to run more, a few more hard runs in my training. So early on in my training, I did not do a lot of intensity. So even the first 2 years, like looking now at what I do from an intensity standpoint, I didn't run much interval training. I didn't run much high intensity runs early on in my career. And now I've layered that in, and I think that has obviously improved my ability to run fast. I'm striding more, I'm opening my body up more, I'm starting to run more efficiently by running faster, more frequently, and your body adapts to the loads that you place upon it, which has allowed for me to improve my paces on, faster runs, right? I think that's one thing. And then the other thing is that I'm drawing a blank on the second thing that I was going to say. Just like my running efficiency has improved. I've noticed this with my most recent faster runs is that my form has improved. And I'm one of those people who don't really stress too much over form. I've never really thought too much about my running form until the last, half a year of training. And even then I do not stress over it too much. I do think most people, and like, let's be honest, like a lot of us right now are, not elite runners, amateur runners get very caught up in form and almost overanalyze and overthink. And a lot of times what we find is that the more you run, your body finds the most efficient way for you to run. And that's probably going to be the best thing for you to do. But I would say because I've run more intense runs and trying to go faster with interval runs and tempo runs, I have been focusing on a few key things where, I'm focusing on keeping my eyes forward and my chest tall and using my elbow drive to help me go a little faster and using some knee drive. Like these are little things that I've started to think about a little bit more and read a little bit more about. So I do think that has also, contributed to faster paces for me. So I would say just layering in more intensity, your body adapts to the load that you've placed upon it. So I've gotten more fit from an intensity standpoint. And then I would say, my running efficiency and form has improved less because I'm focusing so much on it and more just because I'm forcing myself to run faster and my body is trying to figure out how to most efficiently do that. For me, with a little bit of side thought on how I stride. And this goes hand in hand with another question I got is like, how has my training evolved since I started? And I think I'll hit it on again. Like most recently it's evolved by adding more intensity in. And I did not add a lot of intensity in for the first 2 years of my running. And this is something that I'm really happy that I did. I spent a lot of time really trying to build up my aerobic fitness and just getting used to running and nailing down nutrition. And just by nature of doing that, I was able to just get faster and faster. And now I'm at a point where I want to push my limits and really try to see what I can do. And now about 2.5, 3 years into it, I'm layering in intensity. And that has been one of the biggest evolutions of my programming in the last year. And it's really allowing me to take that next step. So I would say that's the biggest thing that's evolved in my training. The other thing alongside that is nutrition. So that's something that I've been working really hard on dialing in. Again, for the last 3 years when I hired a coach to help me with the nutrition side of things, shout out to Coach Luke. He's been helping me with that over the last 3 years. And that has significantly evolved as we've gone through it. And this is not just fueling for the workouts itself. That has evolved for me. I've gotten a lot better. I know what my body tolerates during high intensity efforts, but it's also thinking about what am I feeling before, what am I feeling during, and what am I feeling after so that I can recover better. And I've really doubled down on trying to recover better through nutrition and eating a lot more food than I've ever eaten in a prep before. And that is another evolution of my training. So I think the pace is improving over the years and the evolution of my training over the years has both gone kind of hand in hand with each other, and a lot of those things cross over. So I would say those are the biggest things that have evolved in my training and my paces. And then the last question I have, I think, on the list here is around my favorite post-run beers in the summer versus the winter. Shout out to my guy Glenn for leaving this question for me. I'm not a big beer guy, I'm not gonna lie. I don't really drink that much, so I might not be the best person to answer this question, but what I do know about beer and what I would want after a summer race or run, I would want something that was a little bit lighter, like some type of lager. Something that I think of is local to Dundas here, something like Shed's Lager. That I really enjoy that beer. It's easy to drink, it's smooth, it's light. It's something that I would want to consume right after a race. And then after a cold run, I mean, again, I don't know if I'd really go to a beer, but if I had to go to a beer, I'd probably go to something that's a little more hoppy. And one of my favorite IPAs that I've had is actually from Collective Arts here in Hamilton, and it's the Life in the Clouds. It's so good, and I think that would be another good one to have after more of a winter run. Something like that, or a stout of some sort would probably be the go-to. Again, not a big beer guy, but if I had to pick, that is what I would go with. Yeah, I think that covers all the questions. Appreciate the questions. Answering these things are fun for me. It has me think a little bit. I do a lot of reflecting on like my training, so I really enjoy answering questions. And obviously, if it can help you guys in any way or give you some insights into what I'm doing, it makes me happy. So that's all I got for today, guys. Super stoked. We're about 2 weeks out from Mississauga Marathon. I'm in taper mode. I'm going to try and maybe do a video documenting like what taper looks like and like what I think about during race week and how I prepare for that. And then we just go for it. Feeling really good, feeling really pumped about it. So make sure you guys subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any of those videos. Make sure you head over to Instagram, follow me there. Make sure you follow me on Strava so you don't miss out on any of my workouts. I put everything there so you can see it all, see what I'm doing. And yeah, that's all I got for today, guys. As always, make sure you're getting out there, you're getting after it, you're pushing yourself, and you're digging deep. We'll see you in the next one.